In 1532, the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the territory of ancient Peru. At that time, the Inca emperors ruled over a vast territory which included much of South America. During the centuries after the Spanish conquest, the chroniclers produced writings and drawings recording what happened here, giving special attention to the empire of the Incas. These chronicles reached Spain, and from there they were translated into other European languages, where there was a great demand for knowledge about the New World. For almost 400 years, from the 16th century to the beginning of the 20th century, when pre-conquest Peru was spoken of, only the Incas were mentioned, and they became famous throughout the world. However, civilization had emerged in Peru thousands of years before the Incas. The work of pioneers of Peruvian archaeology like Rafael Larco Joyle, the founder of the Larco Museum, made it possible to learn more about the ancient development of Peruvian history. The first archaeological work carried out during the early 20th century revealed that the empire created by the Incas accounted for just the last 100 years of a cultural development that lasted for more than 10,000 years. Of all the cultural achievements of Peru, the most important is probably its status as one of the few places in the world where civilization emerged completely independently almost 5,000 years ago. This was possible because of the special conditions created by Peru's geography. The people who arrived in the Andean region more than 10,000 years ago adapted to a varied and demanding territory. Peru's seas, cooled by the Humboldt Current, which travels up from the south, are the most fertile waters on the planet, and they provided the ancient inhabitants of the coast with a permanent food source, enabling them to build the first settlements and abandon their nomadic lifestyle. In the highlands, hunters began to domesticate the animals that were their food source, and on the coast and in the highlands, as well as the warm and humid lands of the Amazon basin, agriculture was developed. The domestication of cotton made it possible to make nets for fishing and hunting. The use of fine animal fibers such as alpaca and vicuña, and the growing of cotton, led to the making of clothing and beautiful funerary mantles. Peru is a cradle of civilization because thousands of years ago, ancient Peruvians developed a way of seeing the world and of understanding themselves within that world, and they expressed their beliefs and knowledge in their architecture, their stone carvings, their pottery, their textiles, and their metalwork. For the societies of ancient Peru, in common with all agricultural societies, it was essential to understand the cycles of nature. They knew that nature existed in cycles marked by the return of the seasons. Ancient Peruvians believed that, in a similar way, we humans are born, live, die, and pass into another subterranean world from which life is born again. These natural cycles are possible because the forces which give life to the world are in constant movement. These forces are opposing and yet complementary at the same time. For this reason, at the center of the Andean worldview, we find the concept of duality. The cycle of life is only possible when opposing forces provide it with movement. These forces exist in three planes or worlds: the upper world, or Hanan Pacha, inhabited by gods and represented by birds; the earthly world, or Kai Pacha, inhabited by humans and represented by felines; and the lower world, or Uku Pacha, inhabited by the dead and represented by serpents. Ancient Peruvians represented the forces which gave life to the universe, formed by the sky from where rain fell, the earth where we humans live and work, and the subsoil where the dead go, and from which the fruits of the earth emerge. There was interaction between these three worlds. Favors and benefits were asked for, and offerings were made. In this world, humans made offerings to the dead who inhabited the subsoil, and the dead responded by fertilizing the earth, in the same way that the ancestors fertilized Mother Earth at the beginning of time, when the first life emerged, represented by the tree of life. Humans gave thanks for the life that is produced in this world, inhabited by men, women, and different animals, and they celebrated by toasting with chicha, using cups known as queros, that contained the ceremonial drink fermented from corn, that golden fruit of the earth. Sexual union was understood as an interaction between worlds, in which there is a sharing of forces and fluids between beings which belong to distinct genders or worlds. From this world, humans asked the upper world for water and the warmth of the sun. So that the water and sunlight would come, it was necessary to perform rituals. For Moche society, which developed on Peru's northern coast between 100 and 800 AD, their most important ceremony began with combat, in which warriors dressed in fine clothes and adornments would face each other in hand-to-hand fighting. Victory was achieved by removing the headdress from one's opponent in order to grab him by the hair. In this way, sacrificial victims were obtained. The vanquished were stripped and tied up, and taken in procession to the place of sacrifice, where they were prepared for the supreme offering, the blood sacrifice. This liquid was offered to the major gods in goblets. In other societies, such as the Nazca culture, which developed on Peru's southern coast between 100 and 600 AD, rituals associated with fertility were also performed, in which the highest offering was probably the head of a priest or local chieftain, or his image baked in clay. Just as during times of crisis when human blood and lives were sacrificed to appease the gods, other rituals were also performed in which the blood of animals, such as deer, was offered. Deer were ceremonially hunted by the great lords, who wore magnificent feather headdresses adorned with metal, large ear ornaments, and breastplates. The way in which these lords adorned themselves suggests the eminently ceremonial nature of these hunts. The weapons they carried included clubs, spears, darts, and spear throwers. The spear throwers were covered with gold and finely decorated. The combat ritual and the ceremonial hunt would have had similar meanings. Just as the objective of the combat was not the conquest of territory, but rather the capturing of an opponent for sacrifice, the aim of the deer hunt would not have been to obtain food, but rather to capture the deer for ritual sacrifice. Humans interacted with the other worlds through the mutual exchange of liquids, such as water, chicha, or sacrificial blood, and these fluids were presented in ceremonial containers for which materials with great symbolic meaning were reserved, such as gold and silver. Gold, silver, and copper, and their many alloys, were used to dress the priests, priestesses, and rulers of ancient Peru, who were believed to be descended from the gods. They appeared in rituals which highlighted their sacred character, shining like stars at a time when only these supernatural forces shone. And when they died, dressed and adorned with these materials, they would be transformed into supernatural and divine beings. The history of Peru is fascinating, unique, and at the same time universal. The Larco Museum invites you to explore it.